Cool.
Okay, Lars, how you doing?
Good, good. Do you want me to record this too? Or is
Uh,
it's live?
I'm live, and I just ripped my file straight from Twitch. I usually stream
Cool.
to Twitch. So yeah,
Recording stopped.
That's what's up. Here's Schaefer. Yeah, cool. Hey, Schaefer, we are live with Steve. He's streaming on Twitch as we speak. He's in
What's
Toronto.
up?
how you
Hey,
doing,
I'm
Schaefer?
sorry. I'm sorry I'm late, but we were just doing a thing a minute ago, and I heard my cats making noise in the kitchen, and I realized I had to feed them or they were going to revolt, so I had to run out and feed them real quick.
Not a
Now they'll
problem.
now they'll continue to live another day. Hey, how you doing? Thanks for having us.
Doing good, thanks. It's great to have you guys. I was saying I met Lars in Toronto when he did a tour with Bit Brigade. They did a little set together, and
Was that
man,
just
I
a
was
few months ago?
yeah. When were you in Toronto?
Yeah, was it November?
Yeah, it was November.
Sounds
I think.
right.
They're awesome. And and you told me about your podcast. So I was like, that's tight.
Yeah.
You're streaming still, sorry.
Yeah, I mean, I'm grateful that you'd be on, man. I've been listening to the album, and I'm really blown away by a couple of tracks. So I couldn't believe it when I heard JT Music on there, man. That was that 5 Ways to Kill a Tune. That's a dope one. That took me by surprise. I just let it go, didn't know anything about it. I'm sort of a drop the needle kind of guy. I like vinyl. I like to put the needle down and listen to it all the way through and see how it was, man.
Cool.
I gotta say, my first listen, blown away. A couple of tracks really, Dreamwalker and what's his name? Sorry,
Dreamfinder.
that
Finding
one.
Dreamfinder.
That one's a great track. And Rated G for Trauma. Rated G for Trauma.
Yep.
Those
Hey.
tracks hit hard, man.
Thank you so much.
They were great, and they sort of like took me back to like my childhood almost as like a younger kid when like listening to music that sort of tried to convey a message but like to younger audiences, you know. And it really somehow just hit a chord, and it was really progressive, and like it really hit with me, man.
That's cool.
That's very Steve, that's very genuine, kind, like real review that you obviously you're a musician and a fan of music. So like that's really genuine and sweet. And those songs are very meaningful to us too. All three of those songs, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, the whole album is a really solid album. As I said, I sort of put it from beginning to end, and I just enjoyed it all the way through. And like, but those were really moments that stuck out to me. Those few songs.
And that means we did something right because two of those songs are among our three singles that we selected for the album. So good job, Lars. We picked well.
And three of them we're playing on the next tour live.
Oh, shoot. That's right.
That's crazy. It's awesome.
So you are touring together. That was another question I was going to have, if you guys were going to tour this album at all.
We're doing a May Midwest East Coast run and a US West Coast run in June, but we're not. Yeah, I wish we were coming to Toronto. That would be tight, but we will be kind of near Toronto, and that will be on the East Coast. But yeah. So yeah, Canada. Schaefer, have you played Toronto?
Yeah, but it was many years ago.
It's a great music city. Yeah.
Yeah.
How long have you guys individually been doing music?
Gosh. Schaefer is like just a couple years older than me, so you're a few years ahead of me.
I played drums in a bunch of metal bands before I became a rapper, but I'm getting ready to celebrate something of a milestone because in July it will be the 20th anniversary of the first Shape of the Darklord album that I released.
Nice. It's 20 years.
That's tight.
Yeah. I feel it too in every joint.
Yeah.
Well, every joint's been dope. So I my similar thing. This summer, my first EP came out 20 years ago, and like Schaefer, I'd been in bands and stuff before, and yeah, we're both like since the 90s. I guess you could say we're like 90s artists. We've been doing stuff since then, but rap, because the early 2000s was an interesting time for independent rap because like people were trying to figure out the internet, and it wasn't so like algorithmically, caustically strangulating all the attention. If you found something that's dope, you pay attention to. I'm sure Steve, like you're younger than us, I think, right? But you probably remember those days. Or when did you first start checking for music online?
I mean, online, it was like probably around 2000.
Okay.
So, I mean, I've been actively like I grew up listening to my dad's records and tapes, And then like when I could get
Same.
out to the scene in like, it was about 98 or 99 was my first sort of local show, and I didn't go to like big shows until after my first few local shows, you know? So it was a bit getting into the scene. I was probably almost like, you know, I was late teens before I got into the, like my noticing the part of the town that I would be part of and stuff like that. But yeah.
What did you grow up in Toronto or
Well, I'm
around?
just outside of Toronto in Brampton, so
Okay.
it's been a bit like I haven't. It's been within the past 10 or 20 years that I've been going to shows in Toronto. But like when I was growing up, I didn't go to shows in Toronto at all. They were all local gigs.
Cool. Cool.
What the Cancer Bats? You know them?
Yes, I do. They're actually signed to a label that I worked for a little while, Dynalone Records.
Oh wow.
Yeah,
They're amazing. They have that great cover of Sabotage.
yeah.
They
have-
always would play this Slam Dunk Festival in Shaper in England. I'd always try to see them.
They're a great band. They're a great act. Love them guys.
Dang, you got good taste.
Yeah. I've got one of their stickers around here on my record player. But yeah, I mean, creatively, how do you guys like process your work? Like what makes you write what you do? Like, I mean, I MC Lars, I know you're heavily influenced by Roger Rabbit and like cartoons maybe you watched growing up and stuff.
I mean, so this record's interesting because like we were at Disney World on the last tour before COVID, and we were thinking like what that juxtaposition of that day with like all the darkness of the pandemic. Schaefer and I, we keep in touch a lot, and like we work together on other stuff. So we were like, well, if we were to make a Disney record, what darker themes would we address? So like that's how we started. And then Schaefer, what do we do next?
I mean, after that, I feel like I thought it was such a great, it was a great collaborative concept for the two of us, because you would be like, you tend to be much more like positive and like, and fun and family oriented, like the Disney catalog. Whereas I tend to be a little bit more adult and darker and more grim and spooky. So that brings out like all the occult elements that we were looking for in Disney. So I felt like the two of us like looking for ideas together was really great, because you were suggesting that I check out certain movies that I hadn't maybe heard of. And then I was like, I think I started from just not trying to like seek out things, but try to draw from things that I actually remembered. So like I was trying to remember, okay, I saw this Disney movie when I was a kid, and I remember there was something really messed up in it. And then kind of zeroed in on those. And I think I don't feel like I ever really got to the part in this process where either of us were like hunting for anything. They just kept coming back to us.
We
We
really
both had our own sort of like takes on it.
Yeah, it was easy. The research was fun because it was kind of like just like talking to a friend about stuff, and we just had to make the decision of what not to include. That was the challenge. Like we were like, do we do Muppets? Well, they're kind of Disney. Do we do Star Wars? I don't know. Like what is the Disney catalog, and that because it's so vast now. Do we do Simpsons? I mean,
Yeah.
no. So we made spreadsheets and Word docs, and Schaefer. I love working with Schaefer because he's very fast. So we'd like send each other demos, and sometimes he'd write some of my choruses and hooks, and I'd write ideas for him, and then he'd rewrite them. So we had, that's the key to releasing a record is to give yourself a deadline. And having a Kickstarter, we did the Kickstarter when we'd only like kind of had this one single. So yeah, having a friend who's accountable, who like, just finish it. I think so many musicians don't finish things because they're scared of like what happens when you release something. So
I
yeah,
can relate
Schaefer-
to that for sure.
Yeah. Do you release music too, Steve?
No, I don't release anything. I just make sounds.
That's
I
cool.
I just sort of make stuff. It sounds good to me, and maybe I'll put stuff up on my Instagram or something like that. I want to, but like I know some producers and stuff that I've tried to work with, but I've not got anything sort of solidified by the time I bring it to them, and they're like, yeah, dope. So if you could add some more to that, and I'd be like, okay, and I got to come back another time or whatever. But like,
Sure. Yeah.
it's never been finished. Nothing's ever been finished for me, and I want. There's like an EP in my mind that I've been working on a concept project with like I do like digital art and a whole bunch of different illustrations and stuff, and I've just been working on this concept, and like I sort of want to work around that with like a music project, but I've got like MIDI keyboards and stuff like that, and like I could build a whole band by myself. But
Yeah.
I just don't feel like, I feel like that's the most efficient way I work, but I don't feel like that's what I want to do. So, I mean, I haven't released anything yet, but I'm working on some ideas. So, something broiling in the future.
I really respect that because I feel like there are not enough. I feel like once music became and creating and distributing music became so accessible on the internet, I feel like there were a lot of people that would learn like maybe just the bare minimum skills that would be required or with the most accessible program to like make something. And then it was like just a rush to like, well, now I have to get it out there. The whole point of making something is that I have to do it for an audience. And I feel like it's underappreciated how valuable it is to just make music for the sake of making music and like really kind of honing your craft that way and not doing everything with an audience involved. And I still try to remind myself of that by like creating stuff every now and then that I don't release, that I just do for the sake of trying new things and trying to challenge myself, or most of the time just amuse myself. So I definitely I respect that you like are, you know, you don't want to deal with some producer who's going to like maybe cramp your style and sort of complicate your vision. But I also appreciate that you aren't doing everything with the end goal being like to release product and content, but to do it for the love of creating music.
Yeah,
I appreciate that.
There's a couple things on my SoundCloud that I've roughly created and just like sort of threw up there, but nothing has ever been officially released.
Sure.
So, but I wanted to ask you guys how long you guys, because you said you've worked on projects before. So how long have you guys known each other and been working together?
We met we met early 2007, but I was aware of Schaffer since like mid 2006. So, because we were both living in New York at the same time, and we played a show in Boston because we thought Schaffer lived in Boston, and he opened the show. He took the bus up from Queens to open for us in Boston in 2007 when I was on tour with Front a Lot. So, yeah, I guess that's almost 20 years, 15 years.
Yeah, it's pretty close.
Yeah, taking the bus up though, that's roughing it, eh? Getting to the gig just by bus.
Well, it was I was psyched because I had like I didn't know Lars yet, but I remember before I lived in New York, I lived in San Francisco, and I remember reading an article in the San Francisco Examiner about him in like 2002 or 2003, and being like, "Oh, this is a guy that it's like they're describing that he's doing something similar to a thing that I do. I would like to know this guy." And our paths didn't really cross, and I didn't harass him on the internet. And just one day they invited me to open for them. He and Front a Lot asked me to open for him, and because they thought it was a Boston local, but I did not bother correcting him. It was not. It was, looking back, the 4-hour bus ride was absolutely worth it for like a almost 20-year long friendship.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's how it grows, right? Organically.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's it. And Schaffer helped us load in our gear. He was there early. Sometimes an opener will get there right before they're supposed to play and then leave without like watching the whole show. That's not how you build community, bro.
And I don't think that came from me like just trying to be nice. I think that was informed by me spending years playing drums in metal bands and knowing that like you could help the other bands load their gear in, especially if they're kind of running behind. And I think it was kind of unusual because it's, in our scene, it's like you're bringing in a laptop and like, a box of t-shirts. But I was like, oh, I'll help you out because this is how I was raised to do this.
Yeah, that's important.
See, that's interesting to me also because that's kind of what I did was I would show up to shows early and I would help bands load in, and that's how I made friends. And so I'd help bands get their gear in and I'd talk to them all. One of the bands that I met in Toronto, I helped them load their gear in, and like lifelong friends. Like one of my most recent podcasts was with their singer. So it's like, and that's been like a 14-year friendship. So
same. That's exactly what I did. I helped Lars bring in his box of t-shirts, and look at this. 14 years later, we're talking about a record that we made together.
Yeah, that's cool. I would say, Steve, another thing is like with releasing a record, it's fun to be solo because you can make all the calls. And if you team up with someone else who's solo and do like projects and they're responsible, that's a great way to get things done because you can hold each other accountable. But having a band is always, I found, very hard to like financially make work and to tour, So it's like, that's the interesting thing about working with other solo artists. So like if you're doing solo music, that's a cool way to collab,
Yeah, it's also cool because one great thing about having a band is that there are other voices there that provide feedback during the creative process, though sometimes that can like be a curse too, because then you might have to like butt heads with a bandmate over the creative direction of something. You're a solo artist, you can do everything on your own. But when you are a solo artist and you collaborate with another solo artist, you get the benefit of that feedback that you don't have by not having any bandmates. But you're both like working toward the same goal, and it's not just being contentious for the sake of being contentious. It's kind of the perfect format.
Well,
I found.
and because
Makes sense. Yeah.
That's what's cool thing about rap. Rap is very collaborative.
Yeah, I mean, I've known a couple rappers in my day. There was a couple of years back where I used to manage a rapper, local guy that was a friend of mine, and I don't know. It just I couldn't end up doing much more than he did for himself. But I really enjoyed everything that he was doing, and that's sort of why he approached me and asked me to manage him for a little while. But I know that the scene was like harsh for me to like try to book him for like places. They always wanted like you to sell tickets for them and stuff. Did you guys ever have a problem with that? Like trying like when a venue would try to ask you to sell them out or whatever?
I maybe early on there would like be a few opportunities, and I think I started feeling like as I got older that those things always felt like hustles, like that it was kind of like you got to go out and basically do promotion for us. And I started realizing like they don't care about my act.
Yeah.
They just want people to like sell the club to an audience. They don't care what it is that I'm bringing on stage. And I think once I started noticing those sort of cues, I started avoiding places.
How did you guys like figure out that like scene? Like how did you navigate your way through that kind of problem?
Well, the interesting thing about the early years of nerdcore is that it had a lot of internet attention. So there was loyalty and curiosity in all like the US, especially in like all the small towns. So promoters, especially this guy MC Chris, who got his start doing Aqua Teen Hunger Force, like Cartoon Network raps back in the day.
Oh, yeah.
He would take us to open for him. So there was like this promotional network through like the terrestrial or the cable television world. So promoters knew if they booked us, they would get, most likely they wouldn't lose money. So that's helpful. So like the fact that the internet created this sort of network that where we, it wasn't like we had to prove ourselves, but it's got harder as the years went on, as less of those people were checking for like a centralized culture, and like it became so fragmented. And the people who come to see us now are the people I think largely remember that time when it was like nerdcore had sort of a presence and people kind of knew what it was and it felt new. And so I think that's how the internet, I guess that's a short answer, I would say. What do you think, Mark?
No, I think that's that's solid. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think a generative fan base because of the internet generally helped a lot of musical acts growing up through like the 2000s and stuff, when it started getting more saturated and stuff like that.
Yeah. And advocating free downloading, right? Like that was always a cool thing. That eventually became, now everyone does because no one gets paid for Spotify. But we were all like very much like, take our stuff, buy our shirt. I think that business model 2004, 2005 was felt kind of new and really
kept that
worked.
Business model too. You gave me the CD at the show.
I gave me that. That's what's up.
But
yeah.
I think that's an important thing that Lars touched on, is that like it was centralized. We had like we'd found a bunch of other sort of misfits on the fringe, and we all kind of like banded together, and that became this like kind of scene where as we grew up, the scene kind of fragmented and whatnot. But that was, I think, really helpful to a lot of us in the beginning to gather our first sort of wave of fans. And a lot of those people are still the same people that are coming to our shows all these years later. That's
pretty much what I was going to say. Is it interesting now that basically that's still where your fan base is coming from, is the internet? I mean, that's the only other way to grow is like, I mean, me and Lars met. Yeah, sorry, I'm slurring my speech now. Me and Lars met generically and like organically through a show that I just randomly happened to be at, and I had intentions to ask any of the guys from Bit Brigade to appear on the podcast too, but I never did. And Lars is the one that ended up landing a spot. So I just wonder, like, how does it feel to know that like you started from the internet and you're still going from the internet?
Well, personally, for me, like, I think it's interesting because Frontalot said something that I'll never forget. We were in Columbus, and like it was the first show of like the four, him, Mega Ran, Schaffer, and I hadn't played together for a while. We did, and we were together, and it was like a good turnout. And Frontalot said, "We were never uncool because we were never cool." I thought that was so funny because it's like we never, if something is like really popular and like they put a lot of money to make it hip, it's going to go out of style. But if you're never in style, people remember you on the internet and they have a nostalgic connection. And yeah, that genre never sold out because no one really invested a lot of money into it other than like the tech algorithms when the YouTubers started rapping about games. So therefore, it always felt authentic because we always have time to talk to our fans, and that's tight. I don't know. I guess I'm going in circles, but it's cool. The internet will always be here. And like, I feel like in some way, 5-10 years, we'll still tour and hopefully it'll be a little more people come to see us. Instead of taking an elevator, we took the stairs. And I think that's a cool metaphor. I don't know. What do you think, Schaffer?
No, I think that's solid. I'm mostly just responding to the answer you gave, which was much more concise and thoughtful than I would have. But no, I agree. I co-sign what you just said.
Okay, good.
Well, guys, it's been great having you guys. Thanks so much for being here. I hope to see you guys again sometime. I don't know if I'll make it out to your tour when you do, but hopefully you guys get around to Toronto again soon.
We'll definitely holler next time we come through Toronto.
I'll be keeping an ear on the internet for all your new tunes. Everybody should check out the new album. When is it coming out? Is it out today or is it out?
It's out February 9th.
February 9th.
The single just dropped for the song with JT Music. Yeah,
the new single, 5 Ways to Kill a Toon, right? And I'll put that link in the description in the YouTube video. And it's been great talking to you guys. I'll keep listening.
Awesome.
Thanks
Thank you so much for having us.
Thanks for being here. Thanks.
Bye.
Peace.